Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to our case study. We're entering chapter 4 today on current campaigns. That means that we are wrapping up this timeline, and today's video will try to put that into context for you. We have covered slavery and the war that it caused. We have talked about the rise of the South in terms of achieving power again after the war and being able to deny all of the freedoms that were supposed to come from these 3 amendments. So what we need to do next is talk about how do we get from chapter 3 to chapter 4? How do we get from Dr. King giving this speech all the way to the violence that we see in the streets today? Most textbooks in America are silent on this. This scene of the finish lines of the civil rights movement, they tend to be the last word on race relations in America, which is why so many people look at the news today with confusion. So many white people, that is. So real quickly, some math. The episodes of the civil rights era all added up related to the 14th Amendment, and what you get is a campaign resulting in a major national law signed by the president called the Civil Rights Act. And it supposedly is going to take care of the things that the 14th Amendment were supposed to take care of 100 years before. The same thing happens with voting rights. All of the campaigns and episodes and struggles and black and white documentaries, they all add up to a supposed finish line of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Here's Johnson signing the bill into law, and there's King standing behind him. These, again, are celebrated in textbooks as being kind of like the end of the civil rights movement, or at least promises that we can move into a new era of race relations. One thing that we need to point out here before we move along is that even though we've got 2 math equations here with the 14th and 15th Amendment, and they seem to be adding up to some kind of finish line, a really important equation is left without an answer. And that is, there's no answer to 100 years of post-slavery brutality, imprisonment, stereotyping of black men as violent. There's no answer to that in the civil rights era. If we take this whole story of supposed math and missing math, and we shrink it down and we put it into the lower left-hand corner of a timeline, and where progress in wealth, education, health, political rights, and safety, those are all functions over time. We look at a timeline from the 60s to today. Here's what you need to understand that plugs in this 60 years of silence in the textbooks. And that is that there's a wedge that's being driven between these 2 timelines. White Americans are not living in the same experience as black and brown Americans. Today, it's quite common to turn on the news and hear people talking about the 2 Americas. And you have white families on this top timeline, and they're looking into this gap and they're saying, I don't understand. I thought that we were living in this world where race didn't matter anymore. I mean, didn't Dr. King tell us in a speech that we shouldn't judge each other by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character? I mean, didn't we just elect a black president? Why am I hearing people say that black lives matter? Shouldn't we be saying that all lives matter? Meanwhile, black and brown families are on this other timeline, not a parallel timeline. There has been progress, there has been growth, but it has not been anywhere near the rate of progress for white America. And those families are looking into this gap and they are saying, here's the thing. The black experience, the brown experience in America is a unique experience because of this wedge called systemic racism. The reason why we can't hide behind this idea of color blindness anymore is because the color blindness is what is causing white America to not see what has been happening for the last 60 years in our systems. our legal systems, our banking systems, our schooling systems, policing systems, our voting systems, even our healthcare systems. So the videos that we're going to show you today and in this next lesson on chapter 4 are going to try to explain how we get from this supposed sense of unity when Dr. King gives this speech in front of 1 million people, white and black and all colors and races and cultures, and they're all cheering together, and there's this myth of a finish line in the civil rights movement. How do we get from that to these two Americas? The answer that we're presenting to you today in the form of a menu of options of videos, the answer is systemic racism. And it has been wedged between these two timelines, and it has caused a massive gap in the rate of progress for these two halves of America. I hope that helps. I hope it makes some sense, and I hope you enjoy our lesson.